Welcome to Rising Together, Local Women Leading Differently, a podcast where we celebrate women, share resources, and tell the real stories of what it takes to lead and build differently. Here we believe visibility is power, collaboration is the antidote to competition, and vulnerability is the birthplace of trust. I'm Emma Malvani, a women's empowerment mentor, creating spaces for women to deepen their intuition, self-trust, and confidence in life and business. I'm honored to be your host and share these conversations with you. I'm sitting down with Elizabeth Scott, an IFS therapist, Reiki master, and astrologer who blends these modalities in the most beautiful and practical way. We talk about how your birth chart mirrors your internal family system, why your moon sign matters more than you think, and how healing your parts can actually shift the way transits land in your life. This conversation brought so much clarity and depth and was frankly a ton of fun. I love the way that Elizabeth seamlessly articulates the integration of your personal astrology with your human lived experience. So there's a lot of really great takeaways in this episode, and I think you're going to love it. Let's go. Welcome, Elizabeth. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you so much, Emma. I'm so excited to be here.
Of course. I'm glad we could finally make this happen because I know we had to shift things, and I feel like that is just the human way right now. I was about to say that's just my life, but I feel like that is the
That's
story
right.
I'm hearing.
That's right. It's also it's also what happens when we schedule a Mercury retrograde. So,
That's what I loved what I emailed you that I was like, I couldn't remember honestly, actually, what was happening. Something happens either with illness or something. And you're like, oh, that's okay. Like, I knew when we scheduled this for this time that Mercury was in retrograde and it might impact our ability. And I was like, oh, I just love that. Like, it's application of what we're talking about. So I feel
yeah,
like it's
that's right. So
so
we just
funny.
flow with it. And this is a great time to be talking. So I'm so happy to be with you today in this moment.
Yes, me too. So we met in Sarah Avant Stover's mastermind, and something I was immediately intrigued by with your work. So I love any time or any approach really that's like very integrative. And so for me, holding space for and kind of bringing together these elements of, spirituality or divinity or astrology, kind of whatever your particular flavor is. And then really like anchoring it into the human experience with like practical applications and takeaways. Like that is just something I really am drawn to and appreciate. And so I would love if you could share with us essentially like what your work is, because you're not a typical therapist, or at least not in the way that I historically would have thought of a therapist.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. No, thank you for that question. I love that question, and I love the way you articulated the combination of those things. Um, yes, I feel similarly to you. I can't do just one thing. I really love the integration. And so I am an IFS therapist. I practice in Maryland. Um, and I don't know how familiar your listeners are with internal family systems therapy, which we call IFS. But essentially, it's kind of holding the idea that there's a multiplicity to our internal experience and that we have parts of us that protect us from pain. We have parts of us that may be holding pain. And by being with these parts, being in relationship with them, there's a way in which we can be with them in a healing way that opens up so much space on the inside and freedom and choices. And it's very powerful. And so that's primarily the way that I work. And I also integrate some of these other intuitive modalities. So I bring astrology and Reiki into my work as well. I'm a Reiki master practitioner and have been studying astrology for going on 7 years now. And I find it to be just a really complete experience because the IFS, it kind of takes it down to that granular level where we go inside, we connect with our parts, we connect with aspects of our experience and can work with them in a way that brings healing, that creates real shifts in terms of how things feel on the inside. And it also just creates so much very genuine self-compassion and even self-love. So it just really supports being in a healing relationship with yourself. And then the astrology really zooms out from that individual granular level. And with astrology, we're looking at patterns, we're looking at what cycles we're in, we're looking at what the collective cycles are that are happening right now that we might be feeling and experiencing. And also kind of the evolutionary path, what's possible in terms of our evolution. And it's also really, whereas IFS is very personal, it's very what is my direct experience. The astrology kind of can depersonalize things in a way that's really helpful. Like, um, oh, there's not something just wrong with me. I am experiencing something that we're all kind of collectively experiencing right now. And what's my unique experience of that? But that doesn't mean there's something wrong, that this is kind of coming up for me right now. So it kind of takes the pressure off of the personal. So we have that balance. And then the Reiki is just a really gentle way of bringing in nervous system support. And when we support our nervous system, if you think about it in terms of there's something called polyvagal theory, which talks about the different pathways, the vagus nerve, the longest cranial nerve in our body that interacts with our all the parts of our nervous system and supports our regulation or dysregulation. When we're in that ventral vagal state, which is the kind of tend and befriend, safe, grounded, I'm open to connect, I'm open to, feel safe. When we're in that state, it's like we have more access to self energy from an IFS perspective. And that self energy in IFS is that place in us that can be with our parts in a way that is helpful and healing. And so Reiki reduces stress, helps us our natural response to kind of go more into the ventral vagal state. We have more access to self energy. And so we have more access to the healing resource inside of us that can be with our parts. So they all just come together in a really beautiful, complementary way.
Yeah. And I love that in how holistic it feels. That it really is kind of going back to like just a principle of IFS that like all parts are welcome
Yeah.
and there's such compassion imbued in every element of what you're sharing that I think that's what really drew me personally to IFS was I'd been on this path a long time of, self-love and self-compassion and definitely making headway and feeling like I was beginning to embody that more. And then something really landed when I started learning about IFS and working with IFS that there is such a level of it's deep self-awareness, but it's like I don't even know how to explain it sometimes. Like just compassion that feels like it really actually infuses like the cells of your body
Yeah.
that, previously maybe there were habits of like self-love, but almost like self-love is like spiritual bypassing or like almost like a toxic positivity thing of like just love yourself, love yourself. And it was very at the surface. And then it was like IFS helped it to like drop in and really give me in many ways like that practical what does it really actually look like in my words in my actions on all of these fronts to embody self-compassion and self-love and then you add in I love with the astrology and those elements too. Yes, like kind of that depersonalizing and realizing that there's a larger ecosystem that I am part of. Obviously the human experience, kind of knowing the connection that we have as a collective, but then also this higher system. Like I'm thinking in almost like these concentric circles, just giving understanding and layers to kind of all of this that it's I don't know. For me, I just get very drawn to frameworks like that that can kind of give us all these different just layers and elements and really accounting for the complexity of the human experience. I feel like that you do so
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I love
Mm.
the way you shared all of that. And yes, with IFS, the embodied experience of self-compassion versus, we can do self-compassion as a practice, which is a beautiful practice. And that may be exactly where we are and exactly where we need to be met, kind of that practice of trying to send that towards ourselves. And then when you connect with your parts and so your parts that are feeling not that are able to unblend from you because you're connecting with them and so they're next to you and you find that compassion just naturally emerging when you are listening to them from openness and curiosity and hearing their stories and this compassion just naturally emerges and you have that embodied experience of feeling it, like you said, in every cell. And also the awareness that this is actually what's at my core. Like this self-compassion and love is actually what emerges when these other facets of my experience give space. And that is such a beautiful awareness that creates a really big shift. But yeah, and then zooming back out to that. Yes, like the concentric circles of experience. And um, how are we connected to this larger whole of experience in the collective? If we are kind of a part of a whole, if we are the microcosm of a macrocosm, then it only could kind of make sense that when we look at the archetypes of the planets, it's not that they're making stuff happen or they're making us do something, but rather, how could that be a mirror that's reflecting on a larger scale what's happening on a smaller scale inside of us? So, how can we kind of play with the symbolism of that to just be more curious about our inner world?
Yeah, and something you said when we talked previously that I loved was, let's see if I can get this right. I think you said, like, in terms of your birth chart, it's like your inner family is like reflected or is a reflection of your birth chart, or maybe it was vice versa. But it just helped me to really understand how we can use our astrology in a way to kind of help inform what's coming up for us and kind of understand. But then also, we still get to exercise just the same with our human self awareness of experience, like free will. Like, we can still, this may be the energy that's like supported at this time, but we always get choice. And I don't know, for me, it just, I kind of always love that. Again, I guess it's just like balance of like knowing the information and then still having the awareness of being, a sovereign being with free will and choice. Um,
That's right. That's right. Yeah, being a sovereign being, free will and choice, which is always available to us. And the thing with the archetypal energy of the planets, there are infinite ways that can express. And so it's really like, what is that for you? What is your experience of that? And then given we're looking at your experience, what do you want to do with that experience? How do you want to move forward with that experience? And um, right, like you said, our natal chart or birth chart, it's kind of like an externalization of our parts. And so, yeah, so we're kind of seeing them out in front of us, which is again an unblending from our parts. And when we unblend from our parts, we have more space and we have more access to our curiosity about, oh, what is going on there? How am I experiencing that? And also to our self compassion. And so and clarity is another really big one with the unblending. When you can kind of see this whole picture on the outside of you, it can really bring a lot of clarity about your experience too. But that just gives room to be with what's there in an empowered way. And you know, when you think about parts in IFS, we talk about parts that are maybe holding burdens that they took on in the past, burdens from their experiences and their perhaps young perspective at that time that led them to take on a burdened belief about themselves because that's how they were interpreting the situation. So there can be we can think of like burdened versus unburdened expressions of the planets, of the planetary archetypes. And so it can also be sort of a roadmap for what is the unburdened expression of this? What's kind of the highest potential of this, and what could that look like? And if my parts are in a different place, what do they need? And what are they holding from the past that we can support them and being witnessed so that when they feel ready to release that, they can kind of step into this new possibility that's always there. So it can kind of be um, a map of a pathway towards that too.
Yeah, I love that you brought up the burdens because that's actually like I say every part's my favorite about IFS, but I particularly really love the framework of so there's like the personal burdens, which is ours, comes from our experience and the things we've been through. And then there's also the layers of legacy burdens. So, like things that we've inherited from family, from ancestral line, and then cultural burdens. So, what's happening culturally, societally, and, for our particular, culture and society. And so, I, again, just love that mirroring and that astrology can kind of bring to that. And that awareness that it's not all on us. It's not all just our experience. There are these collective factors and then kind of these wider factors that when, put a little distance, I think you said that when there's room to get kind of the clarity and to see things, which I think the nervous system has such an impact on that ability to get room or to not. Um, yeah, I just think it helps it to just really bring this depth of awareness and practicality to the work, which you blend so beautifully in your offering of practical alchemy. I am loving it. I am loving learning about it. I'm loving seeing how it's like landing in my body, but igniting things in my mind. It's this beautiful blend. And I'm curious what elements, because I would call myself like astrologically curious. Like I feel like I know some things. I probably have like a beginner understanding, but I feel like when it comes to like natal charts, it like blows my mind. And it's one of those things where I learn and then it's like the retention just seems challenging. So I just admire people that can hold that body of work in their heads. So I'm curious what kind of like elements are you looking at when kind of using the natal chart in this way?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, there's so much to look at. And then depending on each person's chart, I might focus in on different things. But I mean, of course, looking at the big three, so that's your sun, your moon, and your rising sign. I love to focus in particular on the moon sign because the moon really rules our inner world. It tells us something about what makes us feel most nurtured, what makes us feel most safe. It can speak to it, it rules like past experiences, it rules intuition. It's kind of the feminine principle in the chart, whereas the sun is this, the solar is the more masculine expression. So the sun is more outward, the moon is more inward. And so it's a great little hack, because if we're focusing on our moon sign, and know how to nurture our moon, that really goes a long way in just a sense of well-being and safety and comfort. Um, and if we don't know our moon sign, or if we're not getting enough nurturance per our moon sign, we might feel that, we just might not feel as supported as we could. So that's something that I really like to look at. We look at all the personal planets, and I mean just the major relationships. So if there are strong, if there are big oppositions in the chart, so that's when two planets are directly opposed to one another. It's called an opposition. And that is what one of my teachers would call a dynamic aspect. It can feel challenging because it's kind of like this part of you wants one thing that is completely the opposite of this other part of you. And it can feel like, oh, I can either have this or that. I mean, it can feel like they're really in a tense conversation that only one side could win. But of course, the way forward is, how do we integrate both? How do I integrate both sides of this polarity? And we can do that on the inside with our parts, to kind of help facilitate that integration. But so yeah, looking at aspects that bring ease, the trines, sextiles, that can be a place where there are really easy gifts or blessings. And then squares, oppositions, things like that, are going to show where the biggest opportunities for growth are. Um, and so we look at that too. And then I'm also looking at the big transits, whatever the big transits are. Um, I mean, we're in a time of life where there are many big transits. There's a lot going on. I mean, this week, I don't know when this conversation will come out, Emma, but just this week alone, we are building to a new moon in Aries, which is um, a really big one. And right now we have 6 planets plus Chiron in Aries. So that's 7 celestial bodies in Aries. That is a lot of Aries energy. Um, and I think I read that we haven't seen this many planets in Aries since the year 879.
Oh,
So
no way. Oh
so
my
we
goodness.
we certainly have not experienced this in our lifetimes. Um, and so it's a lot. And, you know, depending on how you feel about Aries energy, I mean, the archetype of Aries is um, the initiator. It's the beginning point of the zodiac. It's like a brand new beginning. Um, it's a very young archetype. It's like I'm new and I'm learning everything about everything, and I just want to go because I don't know enough to hold back yet. And it can also show up aggressively. It's ruled by Mars. Mars was the Roman god of war. So we can see this playing out in the collective for sure. But it's also huge initiating energy. It's very creative energy. Aries season starts with the spring equinox. So spring is like new growth, new beginnings, creation everywhere. So it's kind of like, where is that in your chart? Wherever Aries is in your chart is getting a big activation right now. How are you experiencing that? So if there's something like that, we're going to look at that. How is that showing up for you? And um, how are other parts of you feeling about it? Are there hesitations or concerns? Are there inner conflicts? Um, but yeah, so we'll look at big transits. And then I also like to look at the progressed moon, because so we have our natal chart, and then we have a progressed chart, which is kind of the planets moving from the point of birth, but it speaks more to internal phases and patterns of emotional development or psychological development. So our progressed moon can kind of show us what are the big themes showing up in your life right now. Like, what are you focused on? What are you focused on emotion? What's your emotional experience? Like, what's the theme of your emotional experience right now? And how is that supporting your development? So it's really helpful to know where your progressed moon is, because it lasts for about 2.5 years, and we can experience those phases in really different ways. And we might kind of be like, oh my gosh, why do I feel totally differently about this thing that like last year I was obsessed with? And it might have something to do with that. um like I'll say,
How would you find, sorry, I just want to ask, how would you find out about your progress moon?
so
Is that
depending on how you're looking up your chart, you can pull a progressed chart, and the kind of chart that you bring up will show your progressed moon. So we'll talk about your progressed moon next week.
I was like, oh gosh, I would love to know kind of
Yeah.
like the themes that like, because I do feel like recently, although I say recently, it could be maybe like evolving over the last 9 months, that there's been like a shift.
Hmm.
And like, I'm just curious, like
Yeah.
how insight could be in the progressed moon. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, no, that's okay. I was just going to say an example of this. Um, my progressed moon moved into Scorpio right around the time that I um, started working very seriously with IFS. And I was working with my own IFS consultant, therapist, working with my parts. And um, my natal moon is Taurus. I have a Taurus moon. And so, in general, things tend to feel pretty calm on the inside for me for the most part. When the when my progressed moon moved into Scorpio, I was like, what is going on? I Everything feels so intense in a way that I really can't remember experiencing ever before. Um, and it was such a gift because it allowed me to really find and notice these parts that were coming up holding these feelings. I mean, it was such a helpful um, part of being able to do this IFS work on the inside of myself. And, you know, Scorpio is the archetype of the alchemist. It's like diving deep and finding the lead and turning it into gold, and going into the cave and coming back with the jewel. And so, I mean, yeah, if your progress moon is in Scorpio, it's a great time to do IFS. I'll just say that, or to do whatever kind of inner work most speaks to you. But you know, you come out on the other side of that feeling such a sense of connection to your internal empowerment, to having so much more clarity about yourself. I mean, it's really um, yeah, I'm in awe of Scorpio moon, Scorpio progress moon. It is a powerful alchemist.
I didn't realize too, you're making me want to dig in now to more of the archetypes of these signs because I have been following, I'll say like more from like a lunar standpoint of like following the moons and knowing what sign they're in and then kind of working with those energies each month.
Mhm.
But now I'm so curious to like really do like a deeper dive because I think it could be so helpful. What I'm hearing, let me know if this feels accurate or not, but essentially that like astrology can give us a really great awareness and a great context for things that are happening. And then when we have that, sometimes what I notice is like a mismatch where people can get the insight, the awareness, they love what they're learning about what could be happening for them and collectively. But then it's like, what do you do with that? How do you really allow that to inform your decisions and inform your embodiment and even a deeper awareness, which is where I feel like IFS is that great layer of taking this insight and giving it some practicality and like really being able to allow it to change us in a way that brings us closer to our purpose or closer to who we really are, unlocking more of that self energy.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It really having the astrology awareness can feel very containing, because it does kind of bring clarity to, oh, these themes are coming up right now, and this is how I'm experiencing them. And sometimes for certain transits, like this is how long it will last, and that can feel really helpful. And then it's the opportunity. It's like, yes, you might be feeling this intensely for this amount of time. And so this is the opportunity. This part is here now. So how can we support you in being with this part? It really wants to be seen and known. And let's facilitate that relationship building. And if it's protecting something, we can get permission to go there and bring healing to whatever it's protecting. And then you have this beautiful transformational experience that leaves you feeling differently on the inside, and in a way that, maybe the next time this transit comes around, it's not going to land the same way. It's not, you're not going to experience the same parts of yourself because they've been really freed up. And so you're experiencing it from a different perspective or with so much clarity. And I mean, and taking even the astrology out of that, I mean, that is truly the experience of IFS that is possible in just when we bring healing to these parts, things that happen on the outside of us, just, you know, for XYZ example, just don't have the same place to land. It's like there's a key on the outside that no longer has a lock it fits on the inside. So you just can experience whatever that thing is with more clarity, more from your adult self. You're not feeling, a young child part from the past holding a burden that makes it feel really vulnerable to this situation. So you just have more of your adult clarity and more choices to navigate whatever was coming up. Same.
Hours, I feel like with this, there's so many avenues to go down. Um, but I don't want to miss, I want you to speak to practical alchemy and what you are creating with this container and kind of
Yeah,
give people a little sense of like what this is, because I love it.
sure. Thank you so much. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm happy to share about that. So, Practical Alchemy is my 3-month transformational coaching container for self aware, spiritually curious, heart led women to come home more deeply to themselves and to their intuition. And it's blending internal family systems, Reiki, and astrology. And there are 6-hour-long sessions, and it's really designed from start to finish to be this kind of gradual unblending from our parts so that we have more and more access to self energy, that wise healing resource inside of us as the um, experience progresses. And so the first session is a visioning session where we kind of call in a guiding vision for you. And there's also a bit about helping you to learn more about your intuitive senses and how you might experience and receive information, whether that's in kind of your vision or intention that we're supporting you in crafting. Um, or in how your parts communicate with you. It can really be helpful to just have more clarity about that because we are all intuitive beings, and that's not something that our culture has really supported us in cultivating an awareness of that or a relationship with that. And so it's just kind of just bringing some light into what's your experience of that right now. And then the second session, we do a Reiki clearing, which is bringing Reiki to something that you'd like some energetic support around. And my experience of that is when we bring Reiki to something, or do energy work around something that maybe we have parts up around or parts need help around or whatever it could be, it just helping that energetic level just seems to kind of clear a path to more ease in connecting with our parts that might come up around that. We just have more access to it. And it's similar to IFS, if you do a legacy unburdening, we have a way of doing that in internal family systems, kind of unburdening legacy energy that's not really yours, it was your family's. And then it's much easier to work with the personal burden, like whatever the part's holding that's personal. So this feels really similar to that to me. And then the third session, we look at your natal chart. We do a really deep dive there. We focus on gifts and opportunities for growth and, your kind of customized plan for nurturing yourself and also, yeah, just note any parts that seem like they might really benefit from attention or want to be more known just through that process of exploring the natal chart. And then in the fourth session, we do um, a process around identifying legacy heirlooms. So the gifts that we receive from our family, as well as legacy burdens. And then we go through a process of bringing healing to a legacy burden. And then in the fifth session, we work with a part that wants or needs our support. Um, just bringing in more self energy to the system through that process. And then the sixth session is kind of a closing ceremony and ritual to just ground all of that in and support you in carrying all of that forward.
And I have the immense pleasure of being able to do this work with you. And one thing that I just need to speak to is your calming, grounding energy and ability to hold the space is really just unlocks so much, to borrow your word, like room, like just space to be with what's inside and what's coming up in a way that feels, and maybe it's just like coming at the exact right time for me, but it just feels like the exact medicine that I needed after kind of an intense season. And I can imagine, and I know from speaking to other people, like there's an intensity right now, right? That just, even if your inner world is calm and grounded, I, especially for empathic people, like I think we're feeling that intensity no matter what's happening in our inner experience. And just your ability to hold that space to come home to yourself. And then adding in these layers of awareness and self discovery is just, it's just a really beautiful experience. I'm sorry I'm not articulating it as well because I just feel closely to it as far as like what it has done for me so far already. And like I'm so excited now to dig more into my natal chart and see kind of the mirror there for what's happening and the context for, what's coming up for me. So I love that you have brought this to the world because, and especially too, I feel like I'm having so many conversations with women who are astrologically curious, spiritually curious. They're really into, having more of a framework and a context for what's happening and then needing kind of this landing, which is what you're doing so beautifully of actually bringing that awareness and doing something with it that I just love. So,
Thank you so much, Emma. That means so much to me to hear that from you. And it is such an honor to get to share this with you. And it also, it just, this offering just feels so joyful and so creative. It's just such a pleasure for me to get to do this with you or with anyone who is a fit for it. And so um, there's a part of me that's like, it's a little unfair. It's like too fun. It's so really great. Yeah, it just feels quite magical and uh, potent. I mean, these are all the things that I do on a daily basis that I couldn't live without. And so this particular combination, yeah, I just want to share it with people because it has truly been life-changing for me.
yeah. When you can feel it. And I think that's what actually makes it, maybe that's like kind of the spark too that I feel is like you, this is such a strength for you and like such a gift that you have to be able to take this information and translate it too in a way that makes sense to people like me that just like it's harder to retain. Um, that just now I could like kind of get all heady as far as like what your birth chart says about, your gifts and kind of what you're bringing. But I think that energy is just fueling kind of the impact and the power within this container of like letting it be fun and that it's something that just comes so natural to you that I think that's part of the magic of what feels so good but also so impactful about this container that I just love it.
Mm.
Sorry, I could go
Thank
on and
you.
on.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Emma. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so tell people how they can work with you, where they can find you, because I know people are going to want to follow up.
Yeah, sure. So you can find me most easily on my website, www.heartsightehealing.com. Heart healing.com. And if you're a resident of Maryland, I offer individual therapy. And also, if you're not a resident of Maryland, or if you are, either way, I am available for practical alchemy. If you are a woman that resonates with what we're talking about, what we're sharing, it might be something that feels really supportive to you. So you can reach out to me through my website. I also have a newsletter that I send out bi-weekly. You can sign up for there. And I also have a free guided meditation called Reclaim Your Calm. And that kind of blends together a little bit of kind of energy care, some breath work, and some IFS informed mindfulness practices. So you feel free to sign up for that. And I'm also on Instagram at Heartsight Healing, and you can sign up for the newsletter and guided meditation through Instagram as well. But that's where I am. I would love to hear from you and be connected.
I love it. And your newsletter is so good. It's one of those ones I like save for when I'm like, I either have my cup of coffee or a calm moment
Thank
that
you. Yeah, it's
thank
really
you.
it's fun to write. I love writing it. So
I can tell. I can tell. I love it when I just love when you can feel like the connection that someone has to like what they're creating that really speaks, I think, through the writing. So
yeah.
thank you so much. Thank you for joining me for this. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you so much, Emma. You just guided our conversation so beautifully, and I loved everything that you shared.
I hope you have a great rest of your day. And thank you so much. You just filled my cup for the day. So it was
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Rising Together, Local Women Leading Differently. If you enjoyed this episode, I invite you to sign up for my Love Notes newsletter, which is your weekly surge of empowerment and inspiration with a heavy dose of realness from my own journey of rising. You can sign up at emmamulvaney.com/newsletter. Until next time, remember, we all rise higher when we're rising together.